Hello, welcome to another video presentation of chesslecture.com. I am Attila Turzo from Hungary, an international master in chess. In this lecture, we will continue our studies about the closed variation of the Sicilian defense. The starting move of this variation is e2, e4. Black plays c7, c5. This is the Sicilian defense. In this position, white plays knight c3 and try to have a closed center, and his plan is to attack on the king side later with attacking moves like f4 or sometimes even with h4, h5. In this position there is two main moves, knight c6, which we will study in this lecture, and also possible to play e6 with the idea to play d5 and have control in the center. So black plays knight c6, then white plays g2, g3 to prepare to develop the bishop. Then black plays g6. Also in this position can transpose to the variation of e6 by playing e6 with the idea of d5. We look at the variation of g6, then white plays bishop g2, black plays bishop g7. Those bishops are very strong in this defense because they control the center squares. With white we played d3 with the idea to exchange the black's strong bishop with bishop e3, queen d2, and then bishop h6. After d3, the main move in this position is d7, d6, which we studied in another lecture. But in this lecture we will look some another lines which are also playable, but not that popular than the d6, d7 move. We start with the move e7, e6. By this move, black prepares to develop his knight to e7 and then maybe play to d7, d5, and also always possible to play d7, d6, and that move transposed to the line of the original d7, d6 move. So after e6, how should we play? We can continue with bishop e3 with the original idea to play queen d2 and then bishop h6. And by this move we also attacked the c5 pawn. And in this position black should solve the problem of the c5 pawn, and he can play d6, but with the d6 move he transposed the variation which we already studied, which started with d6 and then bishop e3 and then e6. Instead of d6, we will study the move of knight d4 first. By this move, the knight blocks the diagonal of the bishop and black has a strong knight in the center. What should I do? In this position, we can immediately solve that problem and to play the knight to the c knight to e2 with the idea to play c2, c3, attack the knight, and then to play d3, d4 to have strong center. After knight e2, black has some options. Example, he can capture the e2 knight. After knight takes e2, we capture back with the knight. And then the b2 pawn is hanging, but also the c5 can be lost. So if black captures the b2 and attack the rook, we can win time by rook b1. And when the bishop goes back to g7, then we can capture on c5. In this position, many times there is a trick to win the bishop by this check with the double attack, but because of the rook on b1, we are ready to play bishop b4 to defend against the check. And white has very nice position. So we go back. And in this position, a logical move to develop the knight to e7. So black plays knight e7, developing the knight, preparing to castle. And what should white play now? We should continue the original plan. So we play c2, c3, attacking his knight, and force him back. But then we would play d3, d4, or force him to capture on e2, and then so knight takes e2. Then white capture back with the knight. Knight takes e2, developing the knight and preparing the castle. Now the c5 pawn is attacked, and after this knight takes e2, black should defend with the d pawn or with the b pawn. If he defends with the b pawn, then we immediately play d4 to have nice center, attack the c5 pawn. And if he captures, then we capture back with the knight. And many times in this type of positions, when black plays also g6 and e6, then because of the dark square bishop develops to g7, then black may have problems with the d pawn, because on d6 it's not defended by the bishop. So black may plans to play d5 and try to exchange that pawn. If he plays bishop b7, and we can castle, maybe black also castles, and then white should try to build up an attack on the king side with f4. And then if black plays d5, then most of the time we play e5 to close the center and winning space, and later we want to play g4 and f5, having very nice attack on the king side. Let us look at this position. Black can play d6 also to protect the c5 pawn. And I think the most powerful way to play is d3, d4 to build up the nice power center and attack the c5 pawn. If black don't capture on d4, many times we can play d4, d5 to win even more space. So in this position, if he captures, then we capture back with the knight. The knight is very, very powerful on d4. It attacks on e6, many times support the f4, f5 attack, and also it prevents the b7, b5 move. So it's very ideal place for the knight. Black may castle, and we castles also. And black's logical move, I think, a7, e6 to prepare b5, or at least to prevent the knight b5 move, which would attack the d6 pawn. And after e6, white plays queen d2, and the white plan would be to attack the d6 pawn later on the d file, or also we can play for either to exchange the g7 bishop. Example, if queen c7, then we can play bishop h6. Black attacks the pawn with the pawn, e6, e5, attacks the d4 knight, then we can capture on g7, bishop takes g7, kings take g7. And then there is a nice maneuver, knight c2, with the idea to play knight e3, to control the d5 square and sometimes support again the f4, f5 pawn advance. Bishop e6, f4, f6, knight e3, controlling d5, rook a d8, then king h1. It can be important to prevent the checks on the diagonal. Queen c5, then the rook goes to d1, to looking for d6, to the d6 pawn. a5, black tried to win some space on the queen side, and then we should try to attack on the king side with f5, bishop c4. Now I think it's better to not capture on c4 because that knight is very strong. It controls d5 and also support f5, so it's stronger than that bishop. We can simply play rook f2, and if black captures on f5, then we capture back, and then I think white has very strong attack on the king side, even with knight g4 and queen h6 ideas, or sometimes g4, g5 gives strong position for white. So this variation may appear after the e6 move. If black plays e6 in the fifth move, black has another moves here. Also he can play moves like rook b8 to prepare immediately the b5, b4 pawn advance. After rook b8, we can continue with our original plan to play bishop e3. And again, black has a choice what to do with the c5 pawn. If black plays d6, then we arrive to the variation of original d6, bishop e3, and then rook b8. It's transposed, which we already studied. Black can play here if he wants to play differently. He can play knight d4 again to block the diagonal of the bishop, to save the c5 pawn. And then we can use the similar idea which we did before to neutralize the strong knight. So what is the move in this position? Yes, we play knight e2, knight ce2, to prepare c2, c3, to build up a nice center. Black can capture immediately this knight, and then we capture back, and he may capture the b2 pawn again to attack the bishop. Then white should play rook b1 to attack the bishop and force him to go back to g7. If he plays to a3, that should be not good, because then this king side would be very, very weak later on, and maybe even white can win that bishop after c3, because that bishop cannot move. Can play maybe queen b3 or rook b3, and then that will be in big troubles. And white can simply play castle f4, f5, and have very strong attack against the black king. So the black bishop should go back to g7. After bishop g7, we capture on c5 to win back the pawn. And here, if black wins the pawn, the a2 pawn, by this check, then and attack also the bishop, we play bishop b4 to save the bishop. And after queen takes a2, white can play c4 to winning space. And now only the a6 square will be available for the black queen, and that would be losing so much time, white will play castle and f4, f5, and having great compensation for the pawn. Black can play d6, which looks more logical, to attack the bishop, and important now, we cannot capture on a7, because that's a trick, because now there is a double attack, a check, which means the bishop. Okay, from c5 we could come back to b4 to save the bishop, but from a7 it's not possible. But after d6 we can go to d4 to offer the exchange of the g7 bishop, which many times an important defender of the king. After bishop d4. If black plays e5, then we simply come back to e3, and then again with c3, d4 we have knight center, and later we may attack the d6 pawn. If black captures on d4, then we capture back with the knight. And if bishop d7, then we can play f4. And later a castle, and having nice attack on the king's side. Also we can come back immediately to e3 if we feel we are more happy with more pieces to attack. So, and we can again castle and then play f4, d4, f5, e5, having very nice attacking chances. So let us go back to the starting position of our lecture. So after d3, we studied already the d6 variation in another lecture, and there white played bishop e3 and then queen d2. And sometimes we played bishop h6. If black knight developed on e7, then we played most of the time the bishop on h6. If black delays with the development of the knight, then many times we play f4, f5 attacking ideas. We studied the variation of e6, and then with bishop e3, and then when the knight comes to d4, we place knight e2 with the idea of c3, d4 having knight center. We already studied with the variation of rook b8, and then bishop e3 again, and d6 transposed to the d6 lines, and if knight d4 again, then we comes with knight ce2. And I would like to show you one more line, one more main line, and the possibility to transpose, because if d3, as if black plays e5, then we place bishop e3 to attack the c5 pawn, and then black plays d6 to defend the pawn, and again we transpose to the d6 lines. If black plays knight f6, then again after bishop e3, which attacks the c5 pawn, black should defend it with d6, then we transpose to the line of original d6, bishop e3 and knight f6. And the last variation which I would show you in this lecture is the move b6, b7, b6. It's an unusual move with the idea of bishop b7, and later black wants to play for d5. Sometimes it's preparing with e6, sometimes e5, and then knight e7, and then later wants to play d7, d5. After b6, I think we should continue with the normal bishop e3 line, bishop e3 move, and bishop b7, we play queen d2 to prepare bishop h6 if possible. If black delays the development of the g8 knight and plays like this move, like d6 move, then we can still wait with the bishop h6 move, and we can develop this move, this knight, the g1 knight, and in this position possible interesting move, knight h3, with the idea to play later bishop h6, and when the bishops exchange, then to play knight g5 to attack the king side. And why don't play simply knight f3? Because after knight f3 the f pawn is blocked. So if there is a possibility, if the position is changed, then it would be hard to play f4. But if white plays knight h3, then he has also the possibility to play f4 if needs. And then later, if the knight has no good space on g5 or it's prevented, then can come back to f2 to support the center. After knight h3, black can still wait with the knight developing moves and plays queen d7, and white castles, e6, and white can develop the other rook a e1 to prepare for the kingside attack. If black plays knight d4, in this type of position we can play knight to d1 and then to play c3, and then the black knight should go back and lose in tempo. And why don't we play to e2? Because then after c3 black can win tempo by capturing the knight. In this position black can continue the development with knight e7. When the knight not controlling anymore the h6 square, then we play bishop h6, and black castles. Then it's time to win more space on the king side to play f4, but then the h6 bishop would be hanging because f4 blocks the diagonal of the queen. So first we capture on g7, the king captures back, and then we can play f4 with the idea of f5. Black can prevent the f5 move by playing himself f7, f5, which is very typical in this setup with g6, e6 to play f5. And then it's time to relocate the knight, so white can play knight g5, and if black plays h6, then we come back to f3, and later the plan for white should be to play d3, d4 to win in more space in the center, and sometimes it can be supported by a knight maneuver, knight d1, knight e3, and then the pawn halves from c3 to play d4. And this gives advantage for white because of the space advantage near the center and on the king side, and a little bit better position for the king because it has the defender of g2, and the black king lost his defender bishop because we exchanged already. So these variations I wanted to show you in this lecture. So in this variation of the g6 bishop g7 line, the main ideas for white to play d6, d3, bishop e3, queen d2, and then attack against the king with the bishop move. The other idea later we can play is to play the f2, f4 move to winning space on the king side, and also later we can play in the center when everything developed by c3, and then d3, d4 move, and the knight already moved away to e2 or from d1 to e3, and then having nice attack in the center. Thank you very much for your attention in this lecture, and I wish you great success in the closed variation of the Sicilian defense.